Project is to get in place. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'll start out with the introduction. While everyone is settling in, I'll just share a bit of history in terms of where we've been on the journey for the redevelopment of the downtown, and what process actually occurred that took us here to where we are tonight. Over a year ago, back in May of 2013, we adopted a downtown master plan and a corridors plan. That plan was prepared by our consultant with Peter Stars. And since the adoption of that plan, we had a new mayor and council that was assembled in the fall of 2013. And the charge immediately, former mayor, was that the city would move forward towards the implementation of the recommendations that were made in that downtown master plan. So you'll notice on the slide, you'll see pictures of trips that were taken to Fort Myers and also to Delray. One of the things that we did was to take the mayor and council on a road trip. And talking about mixed use and talking about redevelopment, we thought it was prudent to really be in that environment and be in a place where we had a city that, like North Miami, had experienced some type of redevelopment, some type of interest in having mixed use being introduced in the downtown. So you'll notice pictures of Fort Myers, and Fort Myers really represents a great example of what can be done with spending public dollars in the public realm. Some cities go with facade programs and spending on private sector spaces, but for Fort Myers, they were intentional in their approach. All, if not most, of the public dollars that were spent in their redevelopment effort were spent on streetscapes, was spent on landscaping, was spent on improving the water and sewer system. And lo and behold, after that was done, public sector said we're responsible for our spaces. There was a surge. There was a surge in the private realm that many people caught on to the idea that now the downtown looks different. It was improved. Visitors started coming to downtown Fort Myers. And in turn, the private sector said, we too want to invest in our spaces. We too want to improve our facade. We too believe that we can expand business operation. And 20 years later, Fort Myers is one of the most successful downtowns that we have in Southwest Florida. They've gotten several awards over the years for complete streets and other things, other initiatives that they've incorporated. And then we took a tour of Delray. Delray now is on the opposite end of the spectrum. Most of their funds were obtained through grant funding, and they spent most of their funds in the private realm. They've given out a lot of facade grants, given out a lot of business investment grants. So they spent a lot of money on really building up the private sector in that city. And they too have a success story. There have been many awards over the years given to Delray. So what we want to do tonight, we're not saying we want to be Fort Myers, and we're certainly not saying we want to be Delray. North Miami has certain unique gems. We're located between two strategic points between Miami and Fort Lauderdale. We have great corridors connecting us from Biscayne to 125th Street to the I-95. We recognize that we are an anchor for culinary arts. There was a downtown redevelopment study that was done last year that included also an economic study. And lo and behold, it revealed that North Miami was the film capital of the South. Not many people knew that. So we recognize that we do have assets as a city, and from this junction, we're looking for ways that we could capitalize on those assets. We're an educational anchor. We have Johnson & Wales, we have FIU. Both are culinary arts institutions. How do we capitalize on that as a city? I see Oakland Park is creating an overlay district, a culinary arts overlay district. Not one culinary arts university is located in that city. So it's almost like a cosmetic approach to attract what's not there. But we have it. It is here. So how then as a city do we position ourselves to be that great center for culinary arts? Again, how as a city do we position ourselves to be that great center for film? How do we support the film industry? And then the third piece that was recognized in the study is that we are a mecca for arts and culture. We have the local museum, and we have other local artists and studios that are located here in North Miami. How do we then as a city position ourselves and capitalize on that? So we partnered in that effort beyond just the study, beyond now that we know that we have assets and we have things that make us unique. How then do we develop a model? So one of the things you'll hear tonight is a description of the conceptual plan. We have the vision on paper. How do we then transport that and create a vision of what the downtown will look like in architectural form and in urban design elements? So you'll hear from our architects tonight. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our project team. We have Debbie Love that will be providing the first presentation from Keith and Schnars. She's an urban planner with Keith and Schnars, and Debbie was actually the project manager also of the redevelopment of our downtown. And I'm going to pause right here to recognize our mayor, Mayor Tandro. Lucy Tandro was a part of the catalyst that really kicked off this downtown redevelopment effort. After the downtown master plan was adopted, immediately our mayor said, I'm challenging staff. We want to have not just this vision shelved on the bookshelf like many other studies have been. We want to see this vision and the recommendations come to life. So we took the tricks, we took the mayor and council, and the mayor has taken the lead and the charge in moving this initiative forward. So one of the reasons we're having this workshop is that she's asked, how do we reach out to the public and how do we get the public buy-in and input in the process? I also want to recognize Councilman Keys, who's in the back. You can wave to the crowd. Are there any other elected officials that are here?
No, wait.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. And Councilman Keys, this is also in her district, the downtown, so she's been very supportive. You notice she's on board at all the trips that we made to Fort Myers, and also Delaware, Councilman Keys was there present. So I know you guys have been patient. I appreciate that. Thank you for coming on time. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the project team. The second half of the project team I want to recognize. We have Alex David that's here with the coordinating group, and he'll be focusing on the architectural elements of the proposed conceptual plan. So if Debbie Love could come forward right now, they're going to start unveiling the pieces of the action plan. And I want to recognize our interim city manager. My apologies, he slipped in. Mr. Aligyan is our interim city manager. And Mr. Interim, would you like to come forward and just say a few words?
Good afternoon, everyone. I think Tanya has said it all, but just to say a few words on the redevelopment or the vision of the city of North Miami. We are really looking forward for your input into this workshop. We are looking to change. We are looking to change the whole downtown facade, and the input in the workshop here today is going to be critical in which direction we take North Miami in the future. So again, I'd like to thank all of you for coming, and the input is going to be taken into consideration. Thanks.
Good evening. I'd like to introduce Bob Cambridge, part of my team. Bob will be working with me tonight to facilitate the public discussion on looking at the strategies. But before we get into that, that's going to be really the fun piece for tonight. It's going to be very illuminating for all of us, so we're really looking forward to getting our input today. Doing a lot of different things. We've updated the land development code and the comprehensive plan so that there is a regulatory framework for what we are undertaking. There's a lot of community outreach that the city undertakes. There's a lot of active members of the community. Look at how many people turned out tonight. So you have a lot of active community members. That's a really an important piece right there. You have an established community redevelopment agency. It's another piece of the puzzle that will help to implement the master plan. There's a state enterprise zone that covers almost the entire city, many areas within the city. And this allows the city and those areas to participate in certain types of grant funding. So again, very important piece. The National Civic League, and this is something that I hope you all are proud of, but the National Civic League in 2010 designated North Miami as an all-American city. That designation is given out to 10 cities a year for exceptional civic accomplishments. That says a lot to your about your community where you are. As Tanya mentioned, you have a business program that you give out for beautification and grant funding to assist businesses in the community. You have an economic and business development program. At the request of the CRA in 2009, you had the Urban Land Institute, a very famous urban think tank, come in and take a look at ways that the city could position themselves in the market. Very important report came out of that. And as Tanya said, in 2011, we were initially approached by the city to take a look at all of the stuff that you'd already done. Engage the community and help to create a vision for what the corridors as well as the downtown will look like. And during the development of that plan, we had a lot of public engagement. We had 2 business forums, community forums. We created a plan, had feedback. We did surveys, visual surveys. Took a lot of input from the community and put that all together into that master plan that, as Tanya said, was adopted in May 2013. So now, we're into the next piece of what's happening with that master plan. It's the action plan that will start to implement those recommendations. It's going to provide some steps, which you're going to help with tonight. It's going to provide a timeline, and it's going to provide some financing strategies for the capital improvements that are proposed within the master plan. Now, we have begun the development of another key piece to the action plan, and that is the establishment of a downtown action plan advisory committee. This committee will have a very important role in that process. They will bring their experience and knowledge to bear to the entire process. They'll have to communicate with their constituents because you'll have representatives from the cultural community, from the universities, from the business community on that advisory board that will look at applications as they come in and say, does these applications comport with the recommendations within the master plan, as well as what the conceptual plan indicates. So tonight, we're going to take that next step. You saw all the things. Did you guys know all those things that have been going on? Because you don't see a whole lot of those things, but now you're really starting to see a lot of what's happening. And tonight we'll move you on. We're going to engage you regarding the priorities and the steps. And then in the future, tonight's not the last time you'll see me, so get ready. It's unfortunate that's not going to be the last time. You're going to have some time to talk to me again, because we're going to take everything that you talked about tonight on the conceptual side for the vision, and on the action plan side for the plan itself. We're all going to go back and put all of these things, take all of these things into consideration, and you'll see us all again in other forums and other meetings in the future. So we do have a lot of things to cover tonight. We have some issues to wrestle with. So what I want to say is put on your thinking caps tonight, and let's get ready to rumble. And with that, I'm going to bring Brock back up to the podium. Thank you guys so much.
All right, good evening. Let me do my first test. Normally I don't need a microphone. Can everyone hear me? Because I actually move around a little bit. As Debbie said, my name is Bob Cambrick, and I'm here to help you record for you your ideas and suggestions about how to move the action plan, come up with an action plan that moves the master plan forward. Before I get into that, what I want to first do is just kind of go over some ground rules. What we want to try to do is maximize your limited and valuable time. And in order to do that, what we're going to do, I asked of you, is that we're going to have one person speak at a time. What we're trying to do is idea generation. We want to hear from you what will be the best way for the city to go forward on achieving the outcomes that have already been identified in the master plan. And so when one person has the floor, let that person speak, although they may be saying the greatest thing we've ever heard. No side conversations, because also begins to affect how other people can hear what's going on. What we also want to make sure that you do is that you identify the ideas, but if someone's already presented the idea you've been thinking about for 3 minutes, and it's a great idea, you don't have to repeat it. You're going to get an opportunity later on to vote your priorities, so we're going to maximize your time. So we don't have to hear 5 times about something. That's not discounting what it is, it's just simply saying that use your time wisely. What we will also do is we won't have enough time to debate what you consider to be the quality of someone else's idea. What you can do is if someone says something and you're not quite sure what that is, we'll ask a clarifying question, make sure we get uniform understanding of it, because later on you're going to be trying to prioritize those things. But competing, debating ideas, we don't have enough time to get into that, although debate's always been in a public forum. What we're trying to do is get all of your ideas at the same time. We want everyone to have the same opportunity to speak. And so you may have 3 good ideas, but let me make sure we give everyone a chance to speak. Everyone may not want to speak, but at least we give the opportunities first. And then finally also, try to be, unlike me and I'm doing right now, concise. Go ahead and present your idea. We're going to record it, and then we're going to put it on the board, and then like I said, later on, we're going to be voting. I believe everyone, I've already given one of these. I'm going to hand it out to Alex, and he will, anyone who raised their hand and have not received them yet, you're going to receive 3 dots. What we're asking you to do is come up with your best suggestions for how we move forward on these different issues. And then we're going to ask you that you're going to vote your top 3 priorities. There's a wonderful opportunities that the city can be pursuing, but at the same time, the city has to prioritize its fiscal resources and concentrate on those things that are going to be able to be manageable and financially feasible first and foremost. And with that in mind, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to rehash the wonderful presentation that Tanya went over regarding some of the things that, like I said, I didn't know. I mean, it's like really fantastic that North Miami is the film capital of the South. And also some of the things that are going on in terms of the opportunities. Like I said, you've got 2 great universities, the culinary opportunities that are there. And so what we want to do right now is, if you look at the agenda, on the agenda, items 3A through E, those are the primary themes that were identified in the master plan as the desirable outcomes. And what we want to do right now is get suggestions from you as to how those things may come about. For instance, one of the things we're talking about is like addressing traffic and parking. What's a suggestion you may have regarding those things? We're going to record those. I may ask you a question when you give me a strategy to make sure I understand which categories that going to go into so that when we write the plan, it's organized well also. And then, like I said, the back end of this, we're going to prioritize the suggestions. So take into account what we're saying to prioritize suggestions is at this community forum, this is what we found out, and these are the things that have priority during the forum. And like Debbie said, there are going to be other opportunities for ongoing input into this process. It is a dynamic document, it's a living document. And so with that in mind, hang on a second. Okay, so with that in mind, I very quickly ask, are there any clarifying questions that anyone has regarding what I just said? Oh, yeah? Okay, let me grab my pens. I'm usually good about the press button. All right, with that in mind, items 3A through E. Anyone wants to go first as to what would be a strategy to implement any of those that you feel would be something that North Miami should be pursuing?
Repeat the question, sorry.
Okay, what we're going to do right now is take a moment to look at items 3A through E. Those are the primary outcomes that were envisioned and identified previously by the adopted. I'm sorry, 4. A through E. That those are outcomes that are been identified. What we want to find out from you is what would be the best way that the city could go about achieving those things. For instance, what would be the best way if you feel creating economic opportunities is most important? What would be an efficient way of going about doing that? If addressing the physical vision of downtown is important, what's the way to get there? If it's a parking issue or if it's a transportation issue, what's the best way that you feel to do that and accomplish that? And then also what's going to wind up happening is after we get your ideas, Alex is going to give you a presentation that kind of begins to visualize some of the potential things that can be done in the downtown area. I'm going to come back and see if there are any additional strategies you have after seeing the presentation, and then we'll prioritize all the suggestions you come up with. And so who wants to be the person who starts off? Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. Next. Yes, ma'am.
You gotta get some businesses into that place that requires a parking lot. You get
Okay, so you want to give me a strategy for how to add businesses. What's the idea that you're saying that needs to be taken care of? The outcome is already there in terms of attracting new businesses. What's the way that you believe we should pursue to get that?
economic.
Okay. Provide economic incentives is what she said. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Landscaping is very hard to walk, the main trees.
Okay.
What was that?
Add landscaping primary trees for walking.
Like shade trees?
Well, a mixture.
Yes, sir.
Public gathering spaces with efficient lighting.
Okay. I'm going to put them on the wall here. Yes, ma'am.
Capitalize on the atmosphere of the antique shops and the art type stores that you have already.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know how to phrase this, but I find some side streets in North Miami going north to south, they don't have turning lanes, you only have one lane. And if a car is making a left-hand turn, you're waiting many lights and traffic fills up during the day.
Okay.
Huh? Like that, yes.
So you need to add additional left-right turning lanes?
Something.
Okay. I'm going to do those as two. Turning lanes and then traffic signs. Okay. Yes, sir. Both sides.
Hi there. Name is Jay Zhang. Now, I have something for both D and F, and I'll give you the quiz, the short version of it. I actually have a cool pen in place. It's a social monthly mixer to feature key places in North Miami, from businesses to restaurant, whatever category. So just put social monthly mixers where people can come out and meet and greet and get to know the actual businesses, whether it be a dry cleaner, a local bank, and it's something, I have a cool pen for. I can talk about.
Okay, so social monthly mixer.
Better advertising of social events and anything that comes up, because there's not much information. Yeah, something in North Miami, because like I said, the neighbor says very little what's going on always in North Miami.
Like a newsletter.
Yeah, they're not everywhere.
All right. Throw back here.
Yes, I don't know what category you'd like to include in, but my thought is, how do you make that street alive at night to attract visitors and other business people? Because as it is right now, after 5 it's dead.
Okay, so here's your suggestion right here. Increase activity after 5 p.m. downtown. Okay, that's what you were saying? Nightlife? Okay.
Finding areas where cars actually slow down so that people can actually walk around and enjoy their neighborhood. Creating buffer zones between the street scene, or the street and the sidewalk. Certain things slow the traffic down for reasons. create more economical growth.
Hey, I got you already. We get someone else who hasn't spoken yet, which is gentleman right here.
We need apartments downtown.
You need a park downtown? Apartments, okay, sorry.
Residential downtown.
Within town?
No, not.
Okay, we'll go with someone else who hasn't had a chance. Gentlemen, yes, sir.
Have we defined what NoMi wants to be as a brand?
Okay, so I'm hearing create a brand for North Miami. Okay. Okay, someone else to make sure, gentleman right here, blue shirt.
To achieve a lot of these goals, we need to make the city more walkable. So like if we can offer certain tax incentives for developers to build up instead of outward, so things become more compact and easier to walk to.
Okay, so we're going to start, so, yes.
I think if the city periodically, 3 times, 4 times a year, closed up the street, did a craft fair or a street fair complete with, food trucks and things, advertised it well and attracted people from other communities. I mean, there are already a lot of shops there that could probably move stuff out onto the sidewalk once every, 3 months.
Can I suggest something that we increase pedestrian traffic?
Okay, but to increase pedestrian traffic, you have a suggestion about how to make that happen?
Well, if you're going to do the discounting, bike plan.
Okay, so we're going to add.
Has a potential of becoming one of the future financial districts of South Florida due to our location. To accomplish that, I think you're going to have to seriously consider enlarging the central business district. Why? So you can attract the major firms that would be doing business through our port with the enlargement of the Panama Canal to accommodate the largest cargo ships. Port of Miami is doing a tremendous job. Port Everglades is. North Miami is right between both of these ports. And if we enlarge the central business district, we're also between both major airports. North Miami could potentially become a future financial capital of South Florida.
North and south, and also maybe partner with visiting cards to attract them to the monthly events, advertise.
Yes, monthly events, I like that.
Yes.
I just want to make sure we incorporate the FEC station
Okay.
on the railroad and connect that to the rest of downtown with perhaps a trolley or pedestrian access. Trolley.
to widen the size of the downtown, which
Mhm.
is from 69. You know, we have the on board coming as well.
Mhm.
So it has to go through, I believe, 6,000 into 12,000.
Okay, so
Downtown.
let's go ahead and capture that. So
And
we're,
not only that, not east-west, only it has to be, downtown has to go east-west and north-south, which will take care of the alleys that I was talking earlier.
okay, so let's go ahead and put that down. Downtown boundaries were extended, what would be the parameters? So you're,
From 6,000 to 12.
okay. And
And
then,
north-south as well.
okay. Probably right.
Yeah.
Okay, so 100,
123.
123, 126. Commissioner Keys?
We need new street furniture like park benches. We need poles that will hold banners. And we need to work on our art and public spaces. We have,
And, wait a minute, you said poles, banners, and invest in public art.
Public places. And she has her own chair. Butterfly chair for downtown. Butterflies.
Yes, ma'am.
Get rid of the industrial zone.
Eliminate industrial zoning. Any other suggestions? And take, yes, sir.
We're going to emphasize congestion traffic, there's going to be a lot of shade.
Okay, we, other than shade trees or any additional suggestions, we have that up already. Okay, yes, sir.
I got one thing, you've already brought it up about bike paths. But if you make a bike path, it should be a bike path, not a traffic lane with a picture of a bicycle.
Okay, so thank you.
And of course, more police presence in downtown. To make it safe.
You always had some. Okay.
And of course, make 125th a 2-lane instead of 4 lanes, so that will stop, slow the traffic. People will stop by those stores and see. We did something like that.
Okay. Yes, sir. Here to here.
So I'm going back to the idea of branding the city, or looking for the brand, or positioning the city against other cities, right? And one of the strengths being that there is a strong culinary presence in the area. Maybe you can combine and incentivize, for example, Miami-Dade. What's the name of the restaurant that Miami-Dade has right across the street that the students are the ones that run it and everything? Right. Toomey. Toomey, right? So maybe you could have restaurants or eating places that are up and coming, new chefs, things like that, to bring, something to the city that's something the other ones don't have. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a great example of a school getting involved in supporting a restaurant that's run by the students that are studying food. So you can kind of make this, I think, what is it? An incubator, right? An incubator of culinary, something like that.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Expanding on the bike paths, maybe some easements could be identified, electrical, FPL easements or that sort of thing, where bike paths could be installed, separate and away from cars.
Still want to make sure that the
captured.
Okay, so start again, sir. So the town, what now?
Non-blueprint to capture architectural and streetscape and lead future development to include trends.
I'm going to say that this is a guide future development. You want to have the blueprint, capture architectural and streetscapes, guidelines to guide future development.
And lead future development to include trendy use.
And the future development, here's your last word.
Trend to utilize trendy use.
Okay.
Do we have mixed use there as a suggestion?
Not yet, ma'am. Not yet. Okay. Okay, so we want to add mixed use.
Mixed use, definitely.
Any other suggestions? Yes, sir.
Something that highlight what the gentleman was saying over here. A civic center could be a magnet to bring what this man is talking about. Highlight all of the culinary schools. Also, the civic center could be a magnet for, you could have like musicals, theatricals, you could have trade shows. And if we capitalize on our location between these international gateways, the two international airports, seaports, major corporations that would be doing business here would want to have trade shows. And that civic center could help attract the money corporations in to North Miami. And our location is a natural to help us get to where we want to go.
All right, so when I recorded with that civic center for trade shows, musicals, business attraction. Are there any other ideas that we haven't captured yet? Yes, sir.
Better advertising of the city at major airports.
Okay.
Like seaport.
I just think once the city's identity is, is clear, thinking about having a PR firm or an advertising company to both, create the message and, kind of shape the public opinion about the city in its new light.
Okay, and then yes, and then right here, yes.
A paint program for downtown businesses, homeowners who can't necessarily afford paint.
You said paint as
a paint, like a house paint or outside, like a facade improvement.
Okay. Madam Mayor.
Make the downtown challenging and personal. Restaurants, you work with the dog, you can sit outside, you have water for them, tie them under the table, and the kids are there. Right?
Yes, sir. Then right here.
Once we define the branding of the city, I think it would be appropriate to establish a design review board.
Establish
a design review board that begins to shape what type of buildings come into the space and how do they make that. Similar to Carl Gables or Romantic Beach, where you setting a standard for what needs to occur. And then you start to do painting like palettes and also
Okay.
Acronym, the acronym for North Miami is NOMI.
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 NoMi, okay.
It's NoMi is to know us. NANOW us.
I love it.
NoMi is to know ANOW us.
Okay, so when I say use. Okay. And then,
Just identify for the future zones close to downtown and parks for kids, just for the future.
okay, so you basically want to create parks for kids in downtown.
Or just a park with
Okay.
walking distance for kids. Just stay within walking distance of downtown. A pocket park close to downtown, yeah, that neighbors and people who go downtown can walk there. That is walkable from the downtown. For kids, small.
Now, one of the things also, while Alex is making his presentation, I'm going to try to look at these and find how we can group these, and I'm going to come back and ask clarifying questions as to which categories you intend them to go into.
Before we tear that off.
Yes.
On Pocket Park, incentives for businesses to create little parks as part of their area, so. Here we go.
Okay, working on it. And, yes, sir.
Everyone else is exhausted. Can I take a few minutes to actually speak to that and make additional contribution?
Let's do this. If you give us your primary contribution, let's let Alex have a chance to do the visual, and then because we're going to come, when we have people see the realization of some of these ideas, then we can refine it a little bit. You want to do that? Yes.
The server response to this and add on to that in a different scale. Can I just give it a shot?
Let's give it a shot so we get your primary idea first, because like we said, we didn't want to get into saying the quality of an idea. People are going to get a chance to make up their own mind. So let's first get what you think is your best idea, and then we'll be able to come back later if we have enough time and potentially discuss those things that people, the group, feels are most important.
That's
Okay.
actually like there's more time than we're taking anyway. But our entire list to this point has basically been, they've been all very, very valid concerns, very good contributions, all of them very easily implementable, very easily done. And with a little bit of effort behind it, all these things can happen. The trouble is that what it does is it gives us the same, it gives us really more of the same in a way. Maybe a little bit improved, but it's not changing this to a grander city, a better thing. What we lack is a focus. We lack a central magnet to the city. We lack an identity. And yes, all these things are great improvements, but it's not like a gravitational force to bring us in, something memorable. If you pass by the city of North Miami, no one really remembers it. You're lucky if you look to one side or the other to see the Mocha Museum of the Plaza, and we don't have anything right now. We don't have a more ceremonial gateway, a better sequence. We don't have a conclusion, and we don't have a destination that you can really take pride in and say, this is great identity for North Miami, and I want to go there. We can meet there, and you remember the city.
And so give me the how to get to that big thing. What would be okay?
Well, it includes both gateways and includes a central focus. And the central focus, and I'll jump ahead since living here so many years and considering this, it should be the mega block sort of that we have that now encompasses Mocha, City Hall, the police station, and some other private areas where the city would take over some of the private buildings. We'd have that entire contiguous block to work with. That could be a park twice the size of Mocha. It would be the location for a new city hall. It would be the location for expansion of Mocha facilities. it would be a win-win situation. It would be completely controlled by the city. It would be an identity that then, with money going into that governmental entity, would then instill private sector development because they see that the city has something great, something to look forward to, a focus to it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so any other pressing idea we haven't gotten yet, and so we can let Alex, like I said, show you some ways that some of these ideas may be realized. Okay.
So you said you want to wait until you realize?
No, I'm sorry. Sometimes I get ahead of myself because I speak very quickly because I try to move. What I said was we're going to let Alex have an opportunity to show you how some of these ideas may be realized in the downtown, and then we're going to try to go ahead and agglomerate these where possible.
Would be necessary. So we'll make sure that the town blueprint is utilized by the architectural and streetscape would be captured.
Okay, so start again, sir. The town go down.
Town blueprint is to capture architectural and streetscape and lead future development to when we are trying to.
I'm going to say that this is a guide future development. You want to have the blueprint, capture architectural and streetscapes, guidelines to guide future development.
And lead future development to encourage transit use.
And the future development, here's your last word.
Trying to utilize transit use.
Okay.
Do we have mixed use there as a suggestion?
Not yet, ma'am. Not yet. Okay. Okay, so we want to add mixed use.
Mixed use, definitely.
Any other suggestions? Yes, sir.
Something that highlight what the gentleman was saying over here. A civic center could be a magnet to bring what this man is talking about. Highlight all of the culinary schools. Also, the civic center could be a magnet for, you could have like musicals, theatricals, you could have trade shows. And if we capitalize on our location between these international gateways, the two international airports, seaports, major corporations that would be doing business here, we wanted to have trade shows. And that civic center could help attract the money corporations in to North Miami. And our location is a natural to help us get to where we want to go.
All right, so my report was at Civic Center for trade shows, musicals, business attractions. Are there any other ideas that we haven't captured yet? Yes, sir.
Better advertising of the city at major airports.
Okay.
Like seaport.
I just think once the city's identity is, is clear, thinking about having a PR firm or an advertising company to both, create the message and, kind of shape the public opinion about the city in its new light.
Okay, and then yes, and then right here, now. Yes.
A paint program for downtown businesses, homeowners who can't necessarily afford paint.
You said paint as
a paint, like house paint or outside, like facade improvement.
Okay.
That's back for your book,
Madam Mayor.
Make the downtown challenging and pet-oriented. Restaurants, you work with your dog, you can sit outside, you have water for them, tie them under the table, and the kids are there. Right?
Yes, sir. And then right here.
Once we define the branding of the city, I think it would be appropriate to establish a design review board.
Establish
a design review board that begins to shape what type of buildings come into the space and how do they go. Similar to Carl Gables or my speech, where you're setting a standard for what needs to occur. And then you start to do painting, kind of colors, also design.
Okay.
Acronym, the acronym for NoMi is N-O-M-I.
NoMi.
NoMi.
Yes.
NoMi is to know us. N-A-N-O-W, us.
I love it.
NoMi is to know A-N-O-W, us.
Okay, so I'm going to say use. Okay. And then,
Just identify for the future zones close to downtown and parks for kids. This is for the future.
okay, so you basically want to create parks for kids in downtown.
Or just a park with
Okay.
walking distance for kids. Just stay within walking distance of
Pocket
park close to downtown, yeah, that neighbors and people who go downtown can walk there. That is walkable from the downtown. For kids, small.
Now, one of the things also, while Alex is making the presentation, I'm going to try to look at these and find how we can group these, and then I'm going to come back and ask clarifying questions as to which categories you intend them to go into.
Before you tear that off.
Yes.
On pocket parks, incentives for businesses to create little parks as part of their area, so. Here we go.
Okay, working on it. And yes, sir.
Everyone else is exhausted. Can I take a few minutes to actually speak to that and make additional contribution?
Let's do this. If you give us your primary contribution, let's let Alex have a chance to do the visual, and then because we're going to come, when we have people see the realization of some of these ideas, then we can refine it a little bit. You want to do that? Yes.
The server response to this and add on to that in a different scale. Can I just give it a shot?
Let's give it a shot so we get your primary idea first, because like we said, we didn't want to get into saying the quality of an idea. People are going to get a chance to make up their own mind. So let's first get what you think is your best idea, and then we'll be able to come back later if we have enough time and potentially discuss those things that people, the group, feels are most important.
That's essentially like there's more time than we're taking anyway. But our entire list to this point has basically been, they've been all very, very valid concerns, very good contributions, all of them very easily implementable, very easily done. And with a little bit of effort behind it, all these things can happen. The trouble is that what it does is it gives us the same, it gives us really more of the same in a way. Maybe a little bit improved, but it's not changing this to a grander city, a better thing. What we lack is a focus. We lack a central magnet to the city. We lack an identity. And yes, all of these things are great improvements, but it's not like a gravitational force to bring us in, something memorable. If you pass by the city of North Miami, no one really remembers it. You're lucky if you look to one side or the other to see the MoCA Museum of the Plaza, and we don't have anything right now. We don't have a more ceremonial gateway, a better sequence. We don't have a conclusion, and we don't have a destination that you can really take pride in and say, this is great identity for North Miami, and I want to go there, we can meet there, and you remember the city.
And so give me the how to get to that big thing. What would be, okay.
Well, it includes both gateways, and includes a central focus. And the central focus, and I'll jump ahead since living here so many years considering this, it should be the mega block sort of that we have that now encompasses MoCA, City Hall, the police station, and some other private areas where the city would take over some of the private buildings. We have that entire contiguous block to work with. That could be a park twice the size of MoCA. It would be the location for a new city hall. It would be the location for expansion of MoCA facilities. It would be a win-win situation. It would be completely controlled by the city. It would be an identity that then, with money going into that governmental entity, would then instill private sector development because they see that the city has something great, something to look forward to, a focus to it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so any other pressing idea we haven't gotten yet, and so we can let Alex, like I said, show you some ways that some of these ideas may be realized. Okay.
So you said you want to wait until you realize?
No, I'm sorry. Sometimes I get ahead of myself because I speak very quickly because I try to move. What I said was we're going to let Alex have an opportunity to show you how some of these ideas may be realized in the downtown. And then we're going to try to go ahead and agglomerate these where possible and then put them into categories and then have you prioritize them after that. So right now...
So we're going to do some work while...
Right. Alex is going to give you the presentation, show you some of the things that have already been looked at, and then see if they're being captured and what additional things may need to be added and emphasized. Okay? Thank you. Great suggestions.
Thank you for your comments because I think they were spot on. Upper right. So we've heard from Bob and Debbie about the overall big picture, which was the corridor plan that was the study was approved, accepted by the council last year, about a year ago, May of 2013. So that was the big picture. Closer? Okay. That was the big picture. What we're doing is looking at the littler picture, which is the downtown area. And I'm glad, someone said about expanding that area. It's not just 125th Street or 6th to 9th Avenues, although that's kind of our focus. I ask you all to come up and look at the maps, because you'll see what we're focusing on. It's not just 125th Street, but we are focusing on key civic spaces, as the term was used. So that'll be brought up in a little bit. Ahead, back. Second slide, please. Perfect. Okay. We consider you the team leaders. Thank you for coming out on a Thursday night. We're here to listen to you as consultants, and we have 10 or 11 pages of notes, which is great. So my presentation is going to be fairly quick. I'd like to show you some concepts we have, but again, we're here to listen and you to imagine. I guess is the word. That's what we're here for. As I stated, the stars presented their plan, which was a major corridor plan. I looked at the 5 or 6 areas of the city, corridors. Still not talking about. And so we are now focusing on. So what we are going to develop out of our process is concept plans. We're here tonight, April 17th, for the Downtown Revitalization Forum. And as I stated, our concept plan will focus on 3 main areas. There are several key civic spaces, 125th Street, and as the gentleman said, the super block, I think you stated or used that term, super block, what we're calling the Civic Center Complex Mocha Plaza. It is a number of acres, one huge block, so there's a lot of potential for redevelopment and development of that site. What's good about North Miami is from a planning and zoning perspective, it's progressive. About 4 years ago, I believe now, the comprehensive plan was redone. Right after that, the zoning code was redone, which allows for a lot of things we've been talking about. So if a developer were to come in, basically it's almost shovel-ready because your zoning code will allow certain uses and mixed uses and a little higher densities and intensities of uses downtown. So our task, and I'll just very briefly, these are the 3 parts: key civic spaces, 125th Street, and the super block, the Civic Center complex. What makes a great downtown? And I guess this slide I put in because it was very interesting. I was a judge at the university that was planning school last week, and these are not my words. These are students, or the students I was judging. At least 5 or 6 people use the same words, and it hit me hard because this is really what makes a great downtown. Define meets perform. Close-in buildings, good environment. It's not too high or too low. It's a good scale for pedestrians. It's comfortable to walk. Trees and white sidewalks. Safe, connected, and memorable. What makes it memorable? And as was stated previously, and I put these slides in, I did a presentation to the City Council about 3 weeks ago, I guess. Some of these slides were in my presentation then, so I just wanted to put them in. This is the mayor in town visited Fort Myers. That was an alleyway. They turned it into a passage. We have a walkway, which is between 6th and 7th, 7th and 8th Avenues, and connecting 125th Street to the alleyway in the rear and the public parking lot. It's kind of a dead space. So, again, this was part of the tour that the elected officials took. City of Hollywood, the circle, if many people remember, was a dead zone. They created an amphitheater, public space, heavily utilized for arts and cultural events. And looking at Delray Beach, Fort Myers, Hollywood, they all have something in common. And the common element was a vision. However many years ago, every one of those cities had a plan and moved forward with that plan, and they've been very successful. Just wanted to, I guess, get a little closer to home. This is a picture of Sunset Drive in South Miami. Several years ago, it did not look like this. They had a public works project, and this is located just west of US 1 Metro Rail. To the left on the left side of the photo is their government complex, South Miami City Hall, a library, police department. There's another building which, historic structure. So it's all governmental uses on the left. And what they did in the 2 blocks in front of City Hall is recreated the street. They took a 5-lane or more roadway, made it 4 lanes, widened the sidewalks, put in trees, put in a median, and you can barely see it. There's a clock tower, which is an iconic structure, letting you know you're there, you're at City Hall, which is it's a very nice feature. This is probably 2 years old. That's why the trees are not very big, but they're bigger now. So the next slide is just a partial view of downtown and what this represents. And as we go through this process, we'll develop these more. This just shows you the location of 1-story buildings, the orange are 2 stories or more. If there haven't been any proposals in it, the gold. And then the Civic Center complex in the center. And what's interesting about this slide and the next slide, there is this one is actually a really good slide. See, there are lots of P's there, which is parking, and it's all surface parking. So there are many opportunities to develop those sites, and parking garages have been brought up. It's a great idea. It centralizes parking, but that frees up all these other spaces for other uses in the future. And that's just another view of the Civic Center. But you see, it's, I guess about 5/6 of the block is public property, and probably well over half is parking. So there's a lot of potential there. This is just an aerial view of 125th Street, looking west, and out of the master plan. We're trying to tie in all these plans together so it's an easier flow. A couple of things that came out of the master plan was stated tonight: slowing traffic and opportunities for trees and more street plantings. Great idea. You need them to make it a walkable area. And I just put the second comment in there: the conversion of 125th Street from the state to local control. That allows flexibility by municipality. If they want to do something out of the box, they're not bound by FDOT, which is kind of a bad word in some circles. So, yeah, we could turn 125th from a highway to actually a better, slower street, more pedestrian friendly. And Bob touched on a few things, and Debbie, in the master plan, but what came out of the master plan was certain ideas concerning downtown, Mediterranean architecture, allowing for arcades and colonnades, more art awnings on buildings to provide shade, make sure the buildings are actually open and transparent. You can see in and out of the buildings. Through the shade, a tree palette that was approved, and the colors also were looked at. We just threw this slide in to show you, these are crosswalks. Once you gain control from FDOT, you can do things, think out of the box, and I love the slide on the right because it's the city of North Miami colors. So, but in different areas of the city, you could potentially have different types of crosswalks, arts, culinary arts, film, education. So you could really think out of the box, and it's a very inexpensive way to brand an area. You know you're coming to downtown North Miami once you cross that crosswalk. One of the things we're going to be looking at and talking about tonight, and it's been brought up many times, what are key civic spaces? They're gathering points, plazas, they're active centers, they can be passive. It's just where people gather, and that's very important. The recreational, cultural, artistic, there are many types of civic spaces, but the most important component, which is not listed, is people. So the kind of overarching theme is we do have a great downtown, the form is here, there are some issues. So how do we try to get to where we want to go, where the zoning code allows us to go? What can we do to revitalize? So with that, we'll start. Now what we've done is just to throw out ideas, just food for thought basically. We're not saying this is going there or whatever, it's just what the code allows and give you ideas. So this is, as we know, 5 points. This could be 5 points. This is 8th Avenue. This could be 8th Avenue. What's great about 8th Avenue is it connects downtown to other facilities, 6 blocks up, high school, library. It's a straight path up 8th Avenue, and make it more inviting for pedestrians or bicyclists by branding that street, and you have a connection. It's more walkable, more put in trees. It's a great street. It can be better with branding. We all know where this is, the walkway that we talked about before. This is what it could be. It's wide enough. A developer came in and opened up this side of the building. you could have something like this to activate that area. Dixie Highway, we all are very familiar with Griffin Park to the end of Dixie, the closure at 125th Street. A little better, a little more green. Next slide. This is a gateway and a corridor to draw people from 125th Street to a great asset, which is Griffin Park. It's just difficult to walk there now, so let's make it less difficult, more shade, better sidewalks, and and it's kind of hard to see on this slide, but there's a gateway feature right at 125th, which is now just some palm trees and 2 narrow sidewalks on each side of where it's closed. So this is the fountain up Dixie Highway. It's, I think, not working.
Arts and Design District?
It's that's on my, that's coming. That's one of Arts Corridor. So at the end, this triangle, there's a fountain that's not very pretty, not working. So with inexpensive paint, crosswalks, and some landscaping, it could be beautified, and there would be a focal point, allowing, again, for people to know they're coming into downtown North Miami. This is 7th Avenue and 125th Street. What's good about this, what's good about 7th Avenue here, it's a local road, no FDOT, no one, just the city. So we could take 2 parking spaces and create a sidewalk cafe, as Donald called it, a corner cafe. So it's off the main street, city-owned, very easy to do. And an existing building on 125th Street, you all know it, it's right across from Mocha Plaza. With some renovation, we can have a couple of restaurants, green the subterranean parking a bit, great space, overlooking Mocha Plaza across the street of the museum. So going back to the Mocha Plaza, as we stated, we have a lot of parking, dead space, underutilized. We threw out a couple of ideas, but question mark, question mark, question mark. At the end of our discussion, we're going to ask you for any more ideas. What would you like to see in a transformed civic center area? So those, again, are a couple of ideas that we just threw out, looking at other cities to get people there more often. This is now Northeast 8th Avenue, south of 125th Street. City Hall is marked. There's some administrative buildings along the west side of 8th Avenue and the vacant parking lot across the street. So what we're doing is showing form. We're kind of getting, we are getting rid of, we're looking at creating more green space, because one thing that North Miami downtown does not have is green space. So if you combine 3 buildings into one building and there's a surface parking, maybe create a parking garage there, or across the street where the other mass is, that site, which is public parking, is great for public-private partnerships, a parking garage, some retail along 8th Avenue. You also see that we've bricked or whatever material it is along 8th Avenue, and that shows you in front of the Civic Center complex. But what the thinking is, and someone mentioned it, festivals, the carnival, whatever, why not close the street off temporarily on Friday nights from mixers or whatever at 125th and 123rd? You have twice the space or more right there for public activities. So again, this is just something we wanted to bring to your attention that could in theory be done. The building is privately owned. That strip is privately owned. Everything else in the super block is owned by the city. What zoning allows is something like this. What it does is activate the plaza, retail on the bottom, residential on the top. It meets the current zoning code. have shade, you have activity, you have people looking on the park.
I comment that I've seen this slide a number of times, and I really see it as what I was saying earlier, that we just sort of sprinkling what exists and having more of it, not planning out a broader vision or larger space. That would have been the great location to expand the Mocha Prop. You have a couple, three, I think, one-story spaces.
So let's, this is just a concept. It's not, we're not proposing anything. It's just what you could do, or you could, the city could.
Okay, just making a note that would be the shooting ourselves in the foot from having a great civic complex. We just talked about it, but we're now bastardizing that opportunity.
It's just a thought.
Okay.
It doesn't have to happen. So, next slide. Okay, so to wrap this up fairly quickly, number one is today, and in sometime in May, and if it's not been scheduled yet, there'll be a second downtown forum, very similar to this process. You invite the public. We're going to get the notices out probably in the next couple weeks. So you'll all be notified, and please sign in so we do have your email addresses or any other information so we can get in contact with you. And then after that, at least for our concept plan, what's going to happen is there's a committee being nominated that will sit as to review project, to look at proposals for downtown North Miami. So we'll do a progress report to that committee and then also to the city council, I believe. And then to wrap this up in several months, probably July or so, we're looking to go back to the council for the final report of our concept plan. Next slide. Just that quote that Tanya loves from Jane Jacobs, a very famous planner. And it's obviously very, very true. And I just wanted to point out there's an email address that the city has set up, NoMi Downtown at northmiamiflorida.gov. If you have any comments, questions, please email. Sorry. Just back up to the quote. Oh, I should read it. Okay. Cities have the capability of providing something for everyone, only because and only when they are created by everyone. That's it for my presentation. Do you want to put the email address of that slide in? Okay, questions?
Thank you for everybody's efforts, everybody's inputs. A lot of it is cosmetic. Cosmetic. Please do not let a developer come in and build apartment buildings that the city could use that space. We have a big bank on, what is that, Sans Souci and Biscayne that is an eyesore and could possibly be used for city purposes. It's all very pretty. We need a lot more landscaping. We need benches. We need new lighting. We need that. It's cosmetic. Let's really concentrate on saving some of our land for city use, city parks, and for our own use, rather than bringing in developers right away who will, in the long run, not serve the purpose we want them to.
Thank you. From here, there's a proposal called the Coastal Link, which we'll use right over here. The railroad tracks just to the west of here. There's a proposal for commuter rail, it's like Tri-Rail, which is farther west. There'll be the eastern line making stops from downtown Miami to north of West Palm Beach. And one of the proposed stations is right here. So that's in the planning stages now, so it's going to take a number of years, but it will be coming.
Originally, they wanted to put a metro rail on 610, but the people at that time did not want it.
I'm not wading into politics because I've been here a long time, so I know the whole story about Metro Rail.
saying the police department, I don't mean to be redundant, that this was a town that time forgot. And I think we killed this city years ago when we said we couldn't go any higher than 4 stories, and we kept putting blinders on and saying, hey, everything's okay when the town was sinking. And I think it's about time we take a real good, hard look at ourselves and say, hey, what are we going to do? We're going to turn this town around. And I think we have, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to look at the land use this August for height and density. I believe we'll come up with July or August. Okay. And you know, I thought, well, you probably thought it was from Mississippi with this accent from New York City. And I look at the great things that happen in that city and how that town turned around. I remember when I was working up in Chicago, and I look at Lower Wacker, Upper Wacker, and the great dynamics of the city and the heartbeat. And there's no reason why we can't do that here. You know, today I think the council is in tune. It's not like the council is shut because they didn't want to see, because they didn't want to believe. I mean, we can do this, and there's nothing wrong with going high, and there's nothing wrong with mixed use, and there's nothing wrong with taking a look at 125th and saying, hey, let's take it away from the state and maybe doing something different with it. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Any closing comments there, or any other comments, or?
I believe the city is sponsoring a sort of a design competition, a call for ideas.
Correct.
And I'm hoping that that's on, because I know, as we've said, it's a little bit more superficial. It's in the business world, it's lipstick on the pig. But there's a chance, hopefully, to go through a competition, if we have a call for ideas. What's missing from the recent presentation is, do we need a road widening at any point? Do we need a larger central square? Do we need a gateway? Not just a sign, but do we need to actually undertake a land, to obtain land at both ends, to nail down a strip of the city and define it? There have to be gravitational forces for all that. Do we need to define street walls and vistas and such? We need to get that bigger overview rather than just the piecemeal, because the piecemeal will not produce the great piazzas in Italy or Paris or anything like that. It'll get sort of more everywhere USA, but maybe just a notch up above.
That's why I invite you to look at the map.
Right.
We're trying to tie the pieces together, not piecemeal.
No, I know, and all of it, I welcome all of it. I think all of it's great, but we need, I think, as you had a quote, you had the Burnham's make no small, where they have no magic, right? No small. And you also had a great Leon Clear quote. And those quotes are by great land planners with the big picture. They weren't decorating with dimensions. And if we could take that on and have the strength to do that, to make some tougher decisions, we can get a better result in the end, but it's not easy. And I think our mayor is willing to do some of that, so we'll propose that to her.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you all for coming. One thing for sure is that we're going to need our students for the artistic look of the city. Councilwoman Keys, myself, and other council members have been visiting many cities that have a downtown. So we have a broad idea of what it is. Our city has to be unique. We don't want to duplicate what's already in existence. And this is where I believe the artistic move of our students, from the, what do you call that thing? When there's a fire and then that water, emergency water, what is it? The water hydrants, I mean, it has to be colorful. If we have to put this city alive, it's not a dead zone, it's not a cemetery. It's gonna be a downtown where we're going to attract people. And I would love to see that the city of North Miami is the attraction where everybody wants to come and see what we have done. That is why when I thought of that NoMi for the North Miami, NoMi is no us. Well, once you meet one of the citizens of North Miami, you have met all of them. So the NoMi is no us. We are the one who's gonna sell the downtown, who's gonna sell our city to the outside world. So we all are gonna be the ambassador of our town in order to ensure that people come to this town day, night, for lunch. We are hoping that we can break ground before the end of this year. So the more people we have with their inputs, and I understand the concern of bringing developers, but downtown is already owned by 3 private entities. It's theirs. One of them owns the entire block from 7 to 8. The other one is the other side, the south side of it, from 8 to 9. We have to work in partnership with them in order to ensure that we do have those mixed use, that we do have those restaurants, and it is family-oriented, people-friendly. So we're going to have contests from the universities, the art students. We're going to have many contests coming through downtown. First of all, we need a logo. As they said, once you reach there, you know this is downtown. So it's going to be the students who's going to be working on that part. We want every single person to be involved, because this downtown, it's not about myself, it's not about Councilwoman Keys, it's about the residents and the children of the city of North Miami. So I'm hoping that next meeting we will have more people with more ideas so we can move on. Once again, thank you all for coming.
I'm sorry. On your way out, you have your 3 dots. What I want you to do, we try to put them in all categories except for yours is the big theme issue, so you'll see that. They're numbered. If you'll take your 3 dots very quickly, vote your preference out of the priorities and strategies so that we can be able to organize that for you to see it in a different way at the next meeting, okay? And as the mayor just said, thank you for coming out and thank you for helping. If you don't have